we've got Professor Pat Utomi, who is the founder and CEO of Center for Values and Leadership. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Pleasure.
Well, I haven't, listened to, at least read up on some parts of that ministerial retreat. Quite a number of sectors and issues were raised there. What sticks out for you?
Come again, please.
What sticks out for you in that ministerial retreat that was just held?
I hate to sound a little like this. I believe this government is a lame duck. And so I really don't pay much attention to the plans coming out of it. These are things we should be doing 4 years ago. We don't begin to look at them 24 hours to transition. So that's really my basic take on the whole thing. My critique, it's also getting broader. I mean, including you, my friends. There's a way in which we look at the challenge of nation building, the challenge of development and progress in our country, from the way that you in the media cover it. You make it like theater. This is theater, especially some of your colleagues in the way they ask questions in these interviews on politics. It's pure theater. It's not theater. It's the lives of millions of people. It's the dignity of a black man and where Nigeria has left it. These are the issues at stake. And so if you ask my take, going through these kinds of routines that I organize and run for companies and things like that, I kind of go, do we really realize what is at stake? Do we really know how people are hurting on the streets of this country? Do we see the humanity that is being really crushed by the lack of effectiveness in how we offer direction? That's my take, period.
But, listening to some of that as well, and then juxtaposing it with what you just said about how people actually feel on the streets, because, government is expected to know that and have their lieutenants give them that kind of feedback. And the comments they make, where do you think we are missing the point?
Precisely the point I was trying to make in many ways. First of all, this reporting of governance as theater leads to, okay, these are our friends, these are enemies, anything said by those people, they just say because they are possibly opposition or one funny thing or the other. They have no mechanisms of really feeling the streets. If they had, and I'm sure they wouldn't, carry on as business as usual. When it throws of a national emergency, a moral equivalence of a war, Nigeria writ large, and somehow, I listen to public officials carry on as if, this is business as usual, don't mind those people, oh, yes, these people. And I kind of pause and ask myself, am I hallucinating? What is going on around me? People are dying every day from hunger. People are dying every day from disease. People are dying every which way you look, from just insecurity, people. And I'm wondering, hey, this meeting going on in this place should be a war cabinet, not one of these things you do business as usual. Okay, a retreat. Where are we going to go? No, this is not where Nigeria is. This is make-believe. This is not reality. I touch those people on the streets every day. And many nights I come close to tears, asking myself, what went wrong with the very idea of our democracy? What went wrong with the ability to feel the people and govern in the best interest of those people? And I'm wondering, where did I miss it? How did we go to sleep? How did this become about politicians and their government of politicians for politicians by politicians? Is this what we're running? Okay.
Prof, the issues that you have raised are definitely very, very interesting. But you know, you're an economist, a revered one at that. And there are figures that usually seem to point to the realities. At least governments will give us figures from time to time, the amount of money that has been spent, number of roads that have been fixed, infrastructure that have been fixed, and all of that. But then we also look at the poverty figures, both domestic and global, both the ones from government and the one from outside of government. And the reality many times differ from the figures. Some will reference the GDP figures, reference how growth is reflecting or not reflecting on the lives of the people. So I'm just wondering, is there a problem with our data gathering mechanisms such that we are not able to gather the right data in order to make the right impact in the lives of the people? Because as you economists will say, data is life, and we need data to be able to plan development.
Very true, but the data you gather depends on what you're looking for. You know, there's a phrase or there's a saying, not mine, that I repeat frequently. You know, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. You can use statistics to say whatever you want to say. It's just a matter of how you gather it and how you try to use it to explain reality. But if at your heart, as a leader, what matters to you is the lives of people, you're going to find the right data that says this is the quality of life of this person. And the same data are all around us. They spew every day. They come to us. I mean, we all have talked about the Brookings study, which brought out the fact that we are the biggest concentration of the absolutely poor on the planet Earth. Even though we are a fraction of the population of India, there are more absolutely poor people in this country than there are in India. You go to data about life expectancy, just take all the SDGs and look where we are located on them. That's data. That's telling you reality. You know, so I don't know what data we're looking for. If we want to know how bad things are, they're looking us in the face. We're talking about investments, foreign investments. We saw the report in Forbes magazine just a little over 2 years ago that said Nigeria was Africa's money-losing machine. In effect, if you want to lose money, go and invest in Nigeria. Is it a surprise that the investors are moving from Nigeria to Ghana? No, because our state institutions turn up investors. I mean, I was listening to some commentary the other day about people who wanted to give away money to Nigeria to make life better. And they dealt with enough government institutions trying to extort bribes from them to give free. And it wasn't a scandalous statement for me because I've experienced it. A multinational oil company in this country, about 6-7 years ago, wanted to build world-class school free of charge in my home state. They had been trying to get the government to accept that when they build this school, they will take it over and, you know, it's a gift. And they hadn't succeeded after. Then they called me. They said, okay, this is your home state. Look at what we've been struggling with to get a free gift accepted. I said, no, it's not possible. So I called the governor. I said, he said, no, it's not possible. I fly all the way to Asaba. I spent time with the governor trying to say, this oil company wants to build a free school. No, how? For months, nothing happened. Then I said, okay, maybe the governor is too busy. I called the deputy governor. I said, boy, come on, see problem. They want to give you a free school. He says, come. I came to Asaba. He called in the commissioner for education. What's the problem? The free school. No. It's... After 3 years of trying to get them to accept a free school, somebody in that company said to me, look, if these guys don't get anything, nothing will happen. And I walked away from the matter. So when we build this kind of culture, that even things being given to us free get colored by our pecuniary sense over the common good, you are in crisis. There's a collapse of culture in such a society. And you better be working on how to rebuild culture. And that's what the crisis is in Nigeria, a collapse of culture.
Well, Prof, I wanted to ask you a completely different question along the line of how do we gather important data in order to impact on development on the people directly. But this conversation around culture that you have raised only raised one issue with me, which is the responsibility of state governments. What kind of systems do we have, and what kind of systems should we have in the states that will directly impact on the lives of the people? Because from what you have said now, a good number of private sector participants would probably reference the same thing and say maybe they have had similar experiences, working with state governments. What kind of system do you see us having now, and what kind of systems should we have or should we evolve that will generate development that will affect the people directly?
And this is a really important question that you raise, and it brings up the fact that it's not just government performing badly, it's us as citizens performing badly. There is a tripartite approach to development. In fact, in 1985, the Aga Khan Foundation has sponsored a conference in Nairobi in Kenya about a tripartite approach to development, involving a collaborative role between the public sector, the private sector, and civil society, or what back in those days were called private development agencies. That conference, Nigeria was led by, from the private sector, one of the leading private sector participants was the chairman and chief executive at that time of one of the biggest conglomerates in the country, Chief Ernest Shunekon. From the public sector, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, very powerful Permanent Secretary, Elijah Abubakar Laji. That delegation from the, if you will, social enterprise sector, with Dr. Jack. And the idea was that civil society plays a critical monitoring and creative stimulation role in economic activity. That civil society, after that conference, part of what I argued was that national budgets should not just be thrown at people. That very early in the year, the issues in the budget process be raised by the agencies of government, come to a forum, a town hall meeting forum, in which civil society is significant. If it's an agency that deals with, say, construction, road works, and all of these, Nigerian Society of Engineers will be present. They will have these figures. How much does it cost to build such a road in Kenya versus how much it costs to build it in, I don't know where in the world, and how much you are proposing for such. And we engage each other. People from the private sector will come with their own views of the impact of this policy choice on production, because we are not going to go anywhere until we become a producing economy. This country is lying prostrate because we don't produce. And we don't produce because of the factors in that Forbes report that called Nigeria Africa's money-losing machine. And all of us will come to some kind of consensus. And that becomes the basis for projecting the budget. And when you then finalize the budget, you come back to this kind of a town hall and take it on. And the people will have exact projections. Okay, you want to build 1,000 houses in the next 6 months. It means that 20,000 blocks should be ready in the next 1 month. You do a critical path analysis of the budget, and civil society takes this critical path analysis and waits on you as you are implementing. It's 1 month into the implementation track. You have only 1,000 blocks. You're supposed to have 20,000 blocks. What is going on? That's the way you get things done. But we have this fancy retreat, and we speak what we speak, grammar, and we go back, and people do what they want to do, and the country is hobbling and traveling south on a continuous basis. Look, Nigerians need to liberate themselves from these things.
Well, Prof, I mean, you've advised, you've been close to those up there, you've tried to put in a word, at least talk some sense of reasoning into several quarters. But if it's this frustrating for you, so one can imagine what maybe people who are out there who are so enthusiastic and optimistic, trying to see if they can contribute anything whatsoever to make things change, you can imagine how they will feel. Now, let me look at this scenario. Assuming, say, maybe the next governance period, we get it right and do certain things for 8 years, chances are that thereafter, it might still be a challenge or might get back to how things have been for a while. So in consideration of some of the issues you raised about certain people in certain places who have this transactional nature of doing things, how do we begin to get it right foundationally? Because it alludes to the fact that we have a foundational problem.
Well, you see, that is why we have political parties, even though they are a complete failure in our system. Political parties identify a direction they would like to take a country. They identify the values that are necessary to take the country in that direction. They identify the quality of human capital that is required to work it. So they recruit people who have capacity, competence and commitment to that track that they have identified as where the country is going, the ideology synchronizes to, and then they socialize these people over a period. I mean, a political party is not something you just jump into. If you go to most of the leading parties in the world, they begin to recruit people from universities while they are still undergraduate. Many of them get into student union politics and get their initial experience there. And then they enter the parties, they enter the Labour Party, they enter the Conservative Party, and they are sent out to serve in local government. Look at Xi Jinping. Look at his career. Look at how China grooms its leaders. And there's a track of commitment to the cause and merit. By the time this person gets to a significant leadership position, you can almost take for granted, his performance based on this track. And so the Chinese Communist Party has done that for China. The Conservative Party does it in the UK. The Labour Party, Fabian socialism, and even how the Labour Party emerged in the UK is a fundamental of this process. In Nigeria, it does not happen. We have these contraptions that are what you call them, machine politics contraptions to just grab power. And you have no clue why you are in this party, what it stands for, beyond a vehicle for you to actualize your own personal ambition. Maybe your obsession in life is for sirens to escort you. And this finally it has happened. And so let everybody on the street fall into the bush when you are passing. Maybe it is the size of your bank account. Maybe all kinds of spurious reasons that take purpose, and put it aside and replace it with power for the individual. So my first thing would say, we need to reorganize political parties completely to be the base for developing that value base. We need to also engage civil society to play that role in the moral rearmament of all of society. Because until we can question some of our current practices, I'm sorry, we're all dressed up with nowhere to go. These are, challenges that assign roles to all citizens, not just a few people who come out and say they're politicians. All citizens have a critical role to play if we're going to get anywhere. And then it throws you back to the old Greek view of who lives in society. At the very base, people who just care about themselves and nothing else, who the Greeks call idiots. And not to be mistaken for today's idiot as an insult, but just that there are people who care only about themselves. And then at the next level, you get tribesmen. That's people who care about a primary group that they belong to, the parochial, and everybody outside of their group is an enemy. Everybody inside their group is, one of the tribe. And so there's constant war between the out guys and the in guys. And then, of course, where we want to be all citizens, people who have this universal sense of our shared humanity and want to advance the common good of all. I think that part of our failure is the failure of citizenship. Again, civil society has a critical role to play in the building of citizens.
Well, perhaps, Prof, the beginning of that conversation, let me try to look at Chamberlain's question from this different angle. There are those who argue that perhaps it's because of the absence of a national ethos. For instance, there are those who would reference that, look, when you mention Germany, you have an idea of what the nation represents. When you mention Russia, you mention the United States, you identify, okay, this is what each of these nations stands for. Even in current day, Rwanda, Malaysia, some reference those nations as well and what they stand for. Even some would also reference that over the past, how many years now, 40, 50 years now, that China, for instance, has migrated itself from what it used to be to what it is now, simply because they came up with a national ethos. For people to follow, there ought to be a national ethos, some would argue. Because generally, just as you have said, every political party is in a hurry to make impact within just 4 years or an 8-year term. 4 years to make enough impact to gain a second term, and then that is it. But perhaps if there is a national ethos, some argue maybe every organization, every state, every country, every president, every governor would be compelled to follow through on that national ethos or state ethos towards a goal, irrespective of who is in power. What's your take on that?
Absolutely true, but who builds that national ethos? It flows from leadership. And let me take some of the examples you've given. China. For a long time, China had this view of the world that crystallized under the Mao leadership, the Communist Party. We all know what it did to China. Great ideologue, but no progress really. Then God gives it an opportunity as Mao passes on. And Deng Xiaoping emerges from the shadows and takes the realm. And what did Deng do? Any Nigerian who wants to understand what happened in China should go and read all the speeches made by Deng Xiaoping in 1978, including his statement about the place of knowledge and intellect in the future of the political party and in the future of China. The Mao era had denigrated intellect, denigrated ideas in the Cultural Revolution, and all of that. And we see what happened to China with Deng offering that new perception of where China should be going, what kind of values China should have. You mentioned Rwanda. It is the work of Paul Kagame in affecting the culture that has shown the track for where Rwanda is traveling. And I can give you dozens of examples of countries, Lee Kuan Yew and his impact on Singapore. It goes to the fundamentals. I hate to go back to this. I wrote a book titled Why Nations Are Poor. And I had 6 sets of interdependent variables. Culture was very central. Values shape human progress. But who sets the tone of culture? Right in the middle, leadership. The problem with Nigeria has been a failure of leadership. Leadership with the dream of a Lee Kuan Yew, of an Al Maktoum in Dubai, that sets the tone of culture. And culture will then determine economic policy choices that we make, how we build strong institutions that set boundaries to conduct, and how we invest in human capital and in entrepreneurship. These are the factors that will lead to sustained progress. And I'm sorry, unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we just haven't had it in terms of leadership for a generation.
Well, Prof, the nation is not on pause. The nation is not coming to an end. I'm going to ask you a double-edged question, so to speak, and I don't know how you're going to take it. This issue that you have raised of a national ethos, a national vision, a national identity, that should come from leadership. How do we come about it? I ask because a good number of people in Nigeria, a huge percentage, something in the region of 70%, if I would quote Professor Adesina yesterday, are youths, young people, and their generation is right there in our faces. Their destinies are literally depending on today. Without this national vision, it's going to be a continuation of the same of the same. So how do we evolve this national vision that these young people will buy into? Because, as you may know, some say Nigeria has already been divided into two. There is the Niger and there is the Nigeria. So how do we have a national vision that both the old and the young will buy into and carry on into the future?
Sadly, I hate to say this to you, this answer to the last one, leadership. When you have passionately committed people, you see, the duty of every generation is to make its shoulders available for the next to stand on so they can see tomorrow more clearly. One of the tragedies of Nigeria is that we have had a leadership elite that has consumed what belonged to its fathers, consumed its own, eating up its children's future, and is getting ready to make pancake from its grandchildren's possibilities. I think that if we train our young people right and we give them our shoulders to stand on, there are many capable 20-something and 30-something-year-olds today who can lead our country to where it should be going. I hear all these things about young people oh, they don't have any deals, they don't have. I meet smart young people every day. All they need is honest counsel, and they will be great leaders. I work with them. The whole reason I set up the Center for Values in Leadership is explicitly to try and find those young people and tell them that if they can dream it, they can make it happen. That they can build the values that can change the world and change our country. And let's not forget Margaret Mead's famous statement that it's a few committed individuals. That's the only way history has been changed. Our duty is to find a few committed young persons who can lead that country. I mean, our country's president was set by a group of 30-something-year-old soldiers, by the way. Why are we so distrusting 30-something-year-olds who are 10 times better educated than those 30-something-year-old soldiers? Why do we talk down at them? The young of this country are good and ready as far as I'm concerned, in spite of all the things that you say to them. Just show them some good example, and trust them, empower them. If I got a chance, I would make 60% of the cabinet under the age of 45. They are able to show you what they can do. Just guide them and then let one of them run. You know, I still just feel sorry that we've had a generation of people who have captured the Nigerian state and don't know how to produce anything. They live off the state and they pretend that they are leaders. They're not leaders, they're parasites. That's what has happened to our country. For decades, we've been run by parasites. If they were leaders, the young people that will succeed them will be all over the place. Don't forget that I was 27 years old when I got into this kind of position and I had no godfather. Somebody at the top in this country just looked at the ideas that were coming out from the things I was saying and said, let's go and find that young man. Why are we not doing it today, finding those 26-year-olds who can step into positions and be tested by running that ministry or that? And in 4 or 5 years, when they're 30-something years old, they can offer this country incredible possibilities. Why not? It's because we have a dependent political class that is parasitic and lives off the Nigerian state. People who all of their lives have done nothing but go from local government to state government, to Senate, to governorship. And you know, I mean, nobody, in my view, should be in public office for 12 straight years without living. If he does that, he's a parasite. You know, he should be able to earn a living doing something else, finding out the problems that people who actually are earning a living face. If all he's done is go from House to Senate to governor to minister, he has never worked in his life. He doesn't know how to produce. And that's the problem of Nigeria. We don't produce. I think, you know, I captured in my play on peas. Production. Huh? We don't get that right, we're going nowhere. Power. Simple matter like power has been out, you know, because of corruption, because of lack of foresight. Give Al Maktoum power problem we have in Nigeria. He will just call GE and say, I want you in 5 years. If there is no any power problem in Nigeria, this is, and power will come. But we have played these games up and down. We need pockets of production. If we can give power to everywhere at the same time, for whatever reason, let's have pockets where production takes place, where there's power 24/7, where there's every infrastructure, and then the production will generate revenues that can fund power going to everybody, everywhere. But these are simple matters. We make it seem like rocket science, you know, but it's deliberate. We deliberately make it. Let's build markets. Let's build strong markets. No, you see, the people, we guide the people. Then the foreign exchange market becomes a mess. And now we're all struggling. Let's change, let's devalue. Let's do that. A market was running for years and ensuring easy access to foreign exchange. We came and we messed it up. And now we're looking for who to blame. I don't know.
Well, just one more thing, Prof, before you go. We know that people resist change. But as things are, I mean, as the system is currently constituted, is there a chance that we can get it right with the next cycle of general elections? If not, how should we approach this?
You see, everything is possible. I like to give an example of a gentleman who I actually spoke with yesterday. He's in the Senate today, Ibrahim Shekarau. Ibrahim Shekarau was a civil servant in Kano, and he was thought of as a kind of plug in the wheel by a governor at the time. And he then ended up through a process back in the classroom as a teacher, whatever. And people were saying to him, look, why don't you challenge the incumbent governor? He said, I have no money. I have no... My friend, Damasan in Kano, Raji Metamasule, my good friend who I used to go to Kano to sit for hours with, said to him, look, my friend, people are saying you should come and run. You're saying you don't have no money. With the teacher's salary, no resources, Ibrahim Shekarau entered the race for the governor of Kano. The people took it as their cause. All the leadership of even his party everywhere objected to this. He won. He won. I think that it is possible for a leader to emerge in this country that can set the course. Just as Lee emerged in Singapore, just as Paul Kagame emerged just as Enrique Fernando Cardoso emerged in Brazil after all the forging around and making a mess of things. And Brazil is where it is. I believe that the possibilities of the human spirit, the triumph of the human spirit can be found and take Nigeria where it should be going. I'm not one of those who close the doors. Now, I spent a couple of hours with Nigerians all over the world on some platform called Clubhouse, and many of them are frustrated. Nigeria is over, you know. And I keep trying to explain to them that Nigeria does not have to be over, and that it just takes finding the right people with a passion for goodness and commitment to service, who have the capacity, and the history of Nigeria will become a completely different song. I've seen it happen to several countries, and I try to teach that so that young people will understand that it is possible. It must be possible for us.
We appreciate your perspectives and thoughts this morning, Professor Pat Utomi, CEO and founder, Center for Values and Leadership.